In this video, we're going to be covering some of the basic maintenance steps for the INOKIM Quick 4. Starting at the top of the handlebars, sometimes over time you may develop a bit of slop in the handlebars. They'll be bouncing around as you're using them. So to take care of that, right underneath in here, there's a set screw. Depending on the model, there might be two, one on top of the other. The best way to deal with that is to remove them, tighten the top one so there's barely any play, and you can still remove this red ring and it snaps into place, and then put in the bottom one and just gently snug it down. Make sure that that red lock ring still moves freely, and that will remove all of that flux that you have in the handlebars. Moving down, our brakes, you can adjust small amounts here at the handlebars. That will tighten up your brakes just a little bit, if that's all you need. Make sure never to align these slots or your brake housing will come out, and that will be not great during your ride. On the other end of this, we have our drum brake. This is your brake arm. If you're needing more adjustment, you can loosen this. Loosen this, tighten that up a little bit, pull the cable, and tighten that back up, and that will give you a firmer brake. If you're finding that your braking is too loose, that's what you need to do. So the next part, occasionally your front wheel during use can become misaligned. So your wheel will no longer align straight with your handlebars. And the trick to take care of that is these two screws here. There's one this way, and there's one this way. Loosen those up. Make sure these are aligned. You can twist them so that they line up, and then tighten them back up. And that's all that takes. That's nice and easy. Now to do with the folding, if that becomes too loose, what you can do is down here, there's this screw, 4mm hex. You can tighten that up just a little bit. So it's just a rubber damper pressing against the bottom of this arm. And when you tighten it, it pulls it in and makes it firmer. And over on the other side, over here, we have this red safety latch. Keeps things from coming loose. Sometimes this can get sloppy and too loose. You can tighten this up, and that may solve it. Or if you come around to the other side, inside this hole here is a little set screw, 2mm, I believe. 2mm hex screw, and that goes onto the back of that red lever, and you just need to turn it just a little bit to make that firmer and lock actually into place. Flipping the vehicle over, we can access a lot more that we need to see. The underside of the vehicle sees a lot of hits and everything from the road, so we want to make sure that this is all in good condition. During riding, you may experience over time a creak in your suspension, a creak or a squeak. We have another video that you can check out to see how to take this all apart and deal with that. But that is something that may show up, and we have a fix for that. Moving along, Chargeboard cover. Before you ride, even during your rides, if you stop, you want to make sure that this is covered. Any foreign material, particles, moisture that gets in there can affect the charging, and we want to make sure that stays closed. Your kickstand, you may experience looseness over time. There are 2 screws in the top up here. You can check those, make sure they're tight, and that will affect this play. And these 2 screws here adjust the height of the kickstand. So this kickstand is height adjustable. If you'd like it shorter, take these screws out, slide this over, and put those 2 screws back in. There are a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 holes for adjustability. You also want to make sure that this screw on the bottom of the foot is tightened as well, because that can come loose. And as a bonus added tip, if you ever find yourself riding in the rain, stuck in the rain with a quick 4, with any of the vehicles that we sell, it's very important to make sure that everything gets dried off once you get home or to your destination. And for the quick 4, that's relatively easy. Towel down everything, make sure there's no moisture. And these screws here, removal of these will access the battery compartment. There is a gasket under there. And then this section up here houses the controller. To access the controller, you'll need to take off this front plastic shroud. There's 2 screws in the front, and then it pulls out. And these 2 screws here hold the controller down and in place. So if you're extra concerned that water may have gotten inside, you can follow those steps to access and double check. Taking these things apart won't damage anything. You just want to make sure that everything is dry. Another thing to check will be your tire pressure and your rims. So while down here, check your tire pressure. You can give it a firm squeeze. Also good to use a pressure gauge. You want it to be about 50 to 55 PSI. These wheels are split rim, so it makes it easy to perform a flat tire fix, but it does mean that these things can come loose over time. So on this side over here, you want to check that these screws are firmed up. These ones hold the rim together, and these ones over here hold the motor front cover on. So this is part of the motor cover and drum brake housing. And on the front, you have these screws with these nuts on the back, just 3 of them on the front wheel. So you want to check that those are tight as well. Yeah, and otherwise make sure that there's no damage to your air valve, that it's going at the correct angle. If you start riding low pressure, this air valve can twist and the tube inside can get pulled, and that will further damage the valve and can cause leaks. While we're down at the tires and wheels, you want to make sure that your axle nuts are tight. It's rare that these come loose. They are nylock nuts, but double check that these ones in the rear and these ones in the front are tight. Do not over tighten. You still want your wheel to be able to spin freely.